I didn't grow up in church. I still don't know all the hymns, the denominations, and the differences, the customs and courtesies and proper protocols, or how to be a godly woman in the eyes of man.
Ciao.
My first memories of the character of Christ, walking through revolving doors of liquor stores, holding tight to Daddy's hand as he made his way to the altar, the counter, giving his daily offering. Communion and nightly testimony service, he lived the gospel while sharing a cold one with the man who spends his nights on the corner waiting for whatever is next to happen. My father never did depart from the word sown deep within his heart. Daddy would break bread with strangers in need of love, a hot shower, and a warm, safe place to rest their weary souls. Bodies broken, their hope nearly lost, he'd share the gospel as he knew it. Grace always leading him home. Through the contradiction of the life of a sinner in love with the Father, I learned that calls to worship didn't always include the wail of an organ in B flat. No ritualistic call and response. That worship meant honoring God in all things, in all beings, in all creation. Whether sinner or saint, God is. Last week, I journeyed home, found my way over the rainbow, home to the loving arms of the first God I ever knew, my daddy. I am the fruit of a single mustard seed, growing just beneath his strong branches, often weakened and weathered by the winds of life. His faith taking root in my heart as I watched him grow. His eyes always on the Lord. He taught me that grace is ever present. His authenticity and humility changing the way people see Christ. Home is where I learned to serve. I pray that my heart is big enough to give like Daddy's, seeking to meet the needs of those he encounters, his daily walk being led by the Spirit. In love, giving love, and being the love of Christ, shining his light on the world. He showed me the way, and in him, I found my own light. Now, I didn't grow up with a church home. Home is where I learned the power of community care, that we can each be a safe space for those in need, that there's freedom in this life with Christ, no matter our sin or greed, that we overcome by the words of our testimony. I watched my father overcome by the words of his own. Maybe you did grow up in church.
Damn it. I'm going to cry.
Maybe you did grow up in church. Maybe you come from a long line of preachers, deacons, deaconesses, missionaries. Perhaps you saw their lives as hypocritical. Perhaps the hurt of church left your own seat of faith shriveled and left for dead. I didn't care. But I can say, always going grace. To quote a great American poet, earth is so dirty. We come from the dust of the dirt from the earth. Earth is so dirty.
Yeah.
We're told not to love worldly things, but we come from the dirt of the earth, and the earth is so worldly. Whatever your story, wherever you find yourself in our worldly dwellings, know that we all deserve a place called home. You deserve a home. A place where you can rest when your soul grows weary. A place to heal when your heart has been bruised. To gain greater understanding of our great commission and mission. I pray that you do not allow the sins of your father and mother, or even your own, keep you from the open arms of the Father. That grace will always lead you back home, over the rainbow, as his promises are true. Today, I invite you, we invite you to a life of freedom, this freedom in Christ. Welcome home, love. I call you love that you may become all that love is, that you may be patient, kind, humble, and loving. I call you home in love, that you find a place safe enough to journey on, to be replenished, a place to serve and be served, a place to love and be loved. Welcome home, love. Back to the open arms of those who love you. No matter the home that raised you, we call you home in love. Come home, love. Welcome home.
That was good.
Thank you.
Tell me about that poem.
That poem was written in 2021. It was for the church I was attending at the time. It was called Freedom Life.
Okay.
And I'd only been there for maybe a year with my then husband. And they asked me to, this was their annual homecoming, right? Like their church anniversary. And so I had done some work with them before I became a member. I had friends that were there. And so I'd done some work with them around social justice, conversations around culture and things. And so they hired me to, write a piece for homecoming. And I had just taken a visit home for the first time, but to Wichita, Kansas for the first time. And I think I go home about every 3 years or so at the time. And so I had been at home with my father, and I am a daddy's girl by every sense of the word. Okay. I love my father. And the way poetry works is that you'll have a line, right? And I guess songs are the same way, right? You'll have like this one line that kind of stands out. And so I'd had this idea of like, I'm so glad I didn't grow up in church. Like that had been kind of in my mind for a few years at that point. And when I was tasked to write this piece for homecoming, that's when all the words just kind of came together. After being home with my father, I grew up with my brother, and I have an older brother who's 2 years older than me. We grew up with him from the time I was like 4 until I was 10. And my father was an alcoholic at the time. He had all the women a brother could want. Every time we turned around, there was some new woman, or we were staying with somebody new. My father would do extreme things like forget my brother and I places if he dropped us off at the pool or at the skating rink. We wouldn't see him for hours. This happened more times than I can count. But through it all, somewhere along he always kept us in the word, even if we weren't in church, if we weren't going to church. The only times I remember being members of churches is if he was married to someone who was in a church, and we go to church with her. But even beyond all that, he had us in the word. I remember nights he'd literally be drunk, but would be like, kids, like, come on, we gotta, he was also a bedtime stories type of dad. So like growing up with him, I watched him grow up, and somehow the grace that I already had within me was like, okay, even though he's drunk, even though he's done this or forgot to do that, or, all these, mistakes parents can make, all in all, he was a loving father. And I could see that he meant well, but that there was clearly this bottle, this can. He was a Colt 45 dude.
Okay.
And I remember going through, I said revolving doors, but this one particular liquor store had like a turnstile, like to get in. So we'd go into the liquor store with him. I remember the smell of the liquor stores. Mm-hmm. But he would always come out and hand someone, if there was some homeless person on the block, he would hand them a beer out of his 6-pack. Or he'd, leave them with a bottle, or he'd go buy them dinner. I remember times he would bring people home and like let them shower. And so he displayed the love of Christ along the way. Like even with all of his, in his own way. He was always kind to people. He was never a fighter. I've seen him knock cats out, but he was like, all right, brother, like, okay, all right, man, like, I'm trying not to. And then if
he wasn't looking for
he
it.
wasn't looking for trouble. He never went looking for trouble. And if it happened upon him, he'd handle it. Kids, let's go. And we keep it moving. And so that piece came together, just really giving thought to the ways that the church fails to display and actively perpetuate the love of Christ. In the ways, with all their the ways that church folk will go about the world being holier than thou, how they say being so heavenly minded that they're no earthly good. He wasn't that. He's good and earthly, good and worldly.
Yeah. He has a purpose in this realm.
But there was always purpose. And I watched him, again, grow up as a man. He stopped drinking probably, 96, his fourth wife, he was trying to holler. And she was like, you need to go read your Bible. They were neighbors. And she was like, you need to go read your Bible. And he's like, all right. And she had 4 small children. And so he started hiding the beer to go, like he wouldn't drink if he went to go like talk to them. And then eventually she started like coming over and letting the kids come like play in the garden, because he's always gardening. He's always like, he's that dude in the community that people call on to come like haul things and help plant things and help, cultivate the land before the next, garden is sown. And so she started letting the kids come around. She started coming around, and long story short, now they've been married for like 25, 30 years. And he eventually to stop drinking. It took him 42 years to mature, but.
That's his time.
Yeah.
What did you learn about parenting through that, like in hindsight? Because like you say you're a daddy's girl. I'm trying to find the thread, because I think it's really important. Because sometimes parents, like now parents, think that they've got to be perfect to be present and to be impactful in a good way.
Yeah.
And I feel like my mom was an alcoholic. She just celebrated her 26-year sobriety, but she grew up, I was raised with her growing up the whole time. Raised with her drinking the whole time. And when I hear about people being with parents who are alcoholics, I don't consider myself a mama's boy, because a large part of our interaction, I didn't feel love.
Okay.
Maybe because I was looking for it in a certain way or whatever, but as you're talking about your dad, you felt all of that, you went through all of that, but you still call yourself a daddy's girl. Is it because you never not felt love?
No, I always felt love. And not just from him, my mother as well, but our story with her is a whole other situation, which I'm sure we'll get to. But my view of parenting is that I think I learned early that our parents are humans. Like they had, and I tell young people and adults who struggle with their relationships with their parents, and this is not to disregard the harm that parents, perpetuate or take us through or cause. But the fact of the matter is that our parents had issues before we ever came along. And in many cases, we know that they weren't going to therapy. They're not talking to nobody about it, right? If they were raised in the church, and they'll try to pray it away or just try to, But I think that both of my parents, I've always been able to take a look at their lives and say, okay, they're trying. Like I can see that you're trying.
You could see that even at a young age.
Yeah. Even at a young age. And I don't remember feeling as if I wasn't loved, even in the times when he didn't show up, or when once we were living with our mother, and he wasn't around, I had a knowing that he was over there trying to figure it out. Like I never thought that he wasn't out starting new families. He wasn't out, doing none of those. Although I have teased him like, sorry, I know you got some more kids somewhere.
Got to.
You got to. So I wouldn't be surprised if even at my big age, somebody's finally like,
Somebody coming down who's 54.
Right. But it's real interesting. I've always just kind of had, and I think I say I'm a daddy's girl because, again, that love, like I did feel loved. And I know that I could count on him. I know I can call on him. I know and I've always felt that, especially after he got sober, right? Like I said, I know the love was there. He just, when I was younger and when he was still drinking, but somehow he wasn't able to fully show up in the ways that we needed him to. But the grace, my name also means grace in the Hebrew language. So they've been calling me Grace for all these years. So apparently I am indeed a gracious person, even toward my parents.
These kind of relationships that get disturbed when we don't take the time to know what it is to sing, to know how to get close to the mic again, or to get something. Singing doesn't make it happen, or maybe.
The person you all are listening to is a poet. She is a singer. She's a model.
I do that.
She's a military vet. Thank you for your service. And she is the director of culture for Eaton.
Yes.
I have Nina Ligon.
Yes. My cousins would say Ligon.
Ligon. Welcome to Two on the Fork. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
It is a pleasure. Like I told you earlier, when I walked around to let you in the door and you came and I saw you, I literally saw Rissy Cat for for a minute, and it was so nice to get that feeling. And I know she has poured into so many people, and I saw Hadia post something the other day, and her post was the first post that popped up when I opened Instagram, and I thought it was Rissy. And I looked, and I was like, oh shit, that's Hadia. And I wrote some underneath. And it's just all these little moments where I feel like she's just popping up everywhere.
Yeah.
And it felt good to have you here and to be here at the time that you are. I know we've been trying to make it work, and I've been being, so.
You rocking, brother.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling full. I'm at peace. I am grateful. And Rissy Cat has been on my mind also. Wow. It's one of those things, like we were talking about my work at Eaton earlier. And, I find myself often when I'm dealing with different things there, I often find myself, or creatively, as a creative entrepreneur in general, and I stop and I've just been like, what would Kat say? How would Kat move? Like if she were here, how would she guide me? And I found myself, when I'm really frustrated with my creative life, and particularly here in DC, I find myself angry because I'm like, for all these years I knew Rissy Cat, I didn't live in the area. I was just kind of back and forth. I lived down in Hampton Roads for 20 some years, but I would always come up and down and see her and be part of the creative community here and in various capacities. And I'm like, now that I've lived here,
she go off and
I'm like, damn. And I remember when I told her, when I told her that I got the gig at Eaton, she's like, yeah, this is just months before she passed. She said, yeah, I told Sheldon he made the right choice in that one. And to hear that from such a remarkable individual and a cultural powerhouse meant the world to me. And I just knew that we'd have time to build together in new ways. So, yeah.
Are you finding it hard to stay connected to her?
Not necessarily. No, I have her program on my bookshelf and her stickers that Hadia made and designed on my wall in my office. Matter of fact, I had a second one that I just on Friday put in my journal.
Okay.
Because I was like, where do I need to put this other sticker? And so I was going to put it on my laptop, but I was like, I may be trading this in soon.
So yeah, don't waste it.
Wait a minute. And I want to get all the money I can out of it, right, from Apple. And so I put it in my journal. And I remember sticking it to my journal. And my prayer is that I be guided by her spirit. She called herself a cultural architect. And I can only dream of building community and culture in the ways that she has and the way that she continues to through the people she's sown into along the way. So, yeah.
And you can see it too. That's what I think is so cool is what she's left and who she's left it in and what they're doing with it.
Yeah.
And even though it might be their work, their idea, their energy, it's so hard to not see her in it.
Yeah.
Especially when you know that they're close. Because like she's just, in my mind, she was just always such a force. Like if she's in a room, there's a way in which she, like her, what was it called? Like the gravitational pull or whatever. Like things are just drawn to her, and then she adds her little piece to it, and then it goes back out and does its thing. And when you know her, you know that little DNA, that fingerprint or whatever. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think I even said at her memorial service that I had the privilege of hosting, if that's the word we want to use. And I said that, like, to be a part of her orbit, like, she was like the sun, and everyone that was in her community, you'd be blessed to find yourself circling this being, this sun.
Yeah.
And gaining and gathering your energy from her in a way that was never like it was never ending. She never, just like the sun is constantly burning, like it never, even now that her spirit, her physical body has gone, she's still very much present in our community in that way. I mean, I can't tell how many times I'll see people and it's like, oh, that's not Kat at all. And it may not even be someone who knew her, but she's present. She's present, ever present. And we're still able to glean from her presence.
When I do research on you and I look at your digital footprint and I look at, what you've done and songs that you've sang and projects and stuff like that you've been on, there's this feeling of God and a relationship with spirituality. And even in the poem that I wrote, "You're so glad you didn't grow up in church," I'm curious to hear about your journey of spirituality and God and Christ and what that has looked like. And I feel like, to the point that you were saying, it does go back to like your dad and Wichita, Kansas and all of that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I like this question because one of my favorite podcasts is On Being with Krista Tippett. Is this white woman?
Never heard of her.
Oh, she's super dope. And her focus is kind of around the human condition. Like, she's always like, how are humans all the same? Like, what makes us human? And one of the questions that she likes to ask is like, how does she say it? Like, what is the how did she say it? Basically, what is your first memory of like your spiritual life? Basically.
I like that.
Yeah, right. I wish I could say it as eloquently as she did. I'll have to send you an episode. The origin of my spiritual walk is just that with my father. For years, I used his testimony as my own because I hadn't lived enough life, right, to see the Spirit at work in my own life just yet, right? So watching my father overcome alcoholism, watching him overcome being this, womanizer, watching him evolve and grow all under the, all by the guidance of the Holy Spirit of Christ is something that for years I was like, I used his testimony. And then as I was about 18 or so, and I was like, okay, well, when I was living with my mother throughout middle school and high school, and she wasn't a churchgoer or any of those things. And so she did listen to Walk Baby Love every Sunday morning, like some gospel tracks. She's always listening to gospel music.
That's funny.
It's like, she wouldn't call herself saved, but she loved gospel music. But when I hit 18, 19, and, was able to kind of go, I'm driving and I'm coming and going as I please, I had a coworker who became a best friend of mine, Dwayne Littleton, who also passed from cancer just about 2 years ago. Jeez. Matter of fact, just before Kat.
I was going to say, that was around the same.
And I remember when Kat told me that she had cancer, it was a few months later, and she finally told me because she had saw me tweeting about him.
Okay.
And so she was like, well, damn, I don't want to put more on her. Like, he had just passed away. Mm-hmm. And I remember tweeting about, but she saw my tweets, and so she kind of just fell back, and she didn't want to add more to my plate. Mm-hmm. Or whatever, to my grief. And so Dwayne was in a church at the time, and he was like, you gotta come visit, whatever. So I did. And it's funny, I was just thinking about this the other day, how every Sunday for, months, I was at the altar weeping because there was so much guilt from, I was 18, 19, I'm 19 years old. I had a live-in boyfriend. I was, drinking and smoking and being a young person coming about and finding it. And I mean, the guilt had me at that altar every Sunday slinging snot. And I remember somebody was finally like, sweetheart, you don't have to if you accept Jesus, you're good. The guilt isn't. And it still took me years to really grab a hold of the idea of what sin is. And sin being the thing, anything that takes you, I've heard it, anything that takes you out of the presence of God. And what I've come to know is that it's not the act of what you do, it's the guilt associated with any particular thing. And so hell, in my mind, what I've come to know what I'm uncovering and kind of how, as I'm still navigating spirituality and learning and unlearning, hell is when it's the guilt and the shame that wrecks our mind, right? So it's not even that it's a place necessarily, but if you die with guilt and shame still on you, then you are tormented
in the afterlife.
In the afterlife. And so I'm learning to release. Even if I mess up, even if I misstep, even if whatever, I hurt someone's feelings or whatever, I'm learning to not hold on to shame in a way that keeps me bound. And I remember my ex-husband, he's a wise dude. He grew up in church, bless his heart. And even what I now know as the white evangelical church, again, a whole other part of the conversation. But one wise thing that he said, I will never forget, he was like, people are more bound once they get saved than they were when they were in the world. We find ourselves, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't. You're thinking about all the things that you can't do so that you don't mess up, so that you can still be considered holy. And you find yourself more bound than if you were, when you were in the world and you were doing whatever, you were kind of, right? And you felt more free. And so now my goal is, okay, how do I release the world in a way that maintains my spiritual walk and my growth, but doesn't hold me hostage to righteousness, the idea of righteousness, if that makes sense.
Because then you start to project it, I feel, onto other people as well.
Yeah.
And it's always easier to see the solution in other people's lives and judge them for not doing what they need to do to improve that part than it is for us to sit and look within and be like, this is what I gotta do. But it's the story behind, it's not the act, it's like the cherry on top of it that makes it really as bad as it does. And so you're the first person I've heard share that, because it's a similar belief that I have, that it's the story behind the story. And I don't know if it's like human programming or like how we're set up now to have all the negativity or to assign some type of value of good or bad to something, and then to associate that with the being of the person,
right?
As opposed to just.
Well, you think about it, we're told in the Christian tradition, we've been told that we're inherently sinful.
Yeah, out the gate.
Out the gate. What am I supposed to do with that?
Yeah.
So now everything that I do is bad and I'm striving for good. And that's not true. Like, I honestly don't see that to be true.
What do you think it is then? I agree, but I just want to know.
I feel you.
I just want to know your.
Yeah. And I'm still making sense of all this. I'm still like currently exploring these things, these ideas. And so what I think is that, because when you look at a baby, they're not bad, right? They're not good or bad. They're a baby. We navigate the world, and you think about when a child first starts like lying or like being like deceitful, or it might happen around 3. But that's because all along we're telling them, oh, you can't do that. Don't do that. Nope, stop. No, right? And while it may be a matter of keeping them safe, right? Immediately we're told from the beginning that we're bad. You know, you think about a child exploring and doing things and touching things. Oh, his little badass. Oh, they so bad. What? No. Stop calling them bad. Stop
for exploring.
For doing what children do. They're learning. They're taking in data, right? It's all data when you think about it.
Yep.
So it's not good or bad. But if we're calling them bad from the beginning, and then we get into the spiritual aspect of it, and then we're told, and this just goes back to, we can go real deep and talk about colonization, we can talk about, right? So even when it comes to the word that my father had me in young, you know, at an early age, we're coming to know the truth that it was all written and the word was used in a way to control the masses. Again, still kind of exploring what all that is.
Yeah.
I still find some truth in the word. I still found guidance in the word, and surely through the teachings of Christ. But if we are talking about, now my focus isn't so much as being holy and making it to heaven as it is truly seeking to live the way Christ lived, the way. We talk about, the word says, he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. That means that the way I engage with foreigners, the way that I engage with the powers that be, like all of these things, use my life as an example for how to live yours.
Yeah.
Not don't drink, don't smoke, don't have sex before marriage, don't be gay, don't be. Christ wasn't worried about none of that.
None of it. None of it.
Christ looked at the men who brought the story of the woman, the adulteress, like who the men bring her, and it's like this woman was caught in adultery.
Oh yeah, and
well, first of all, what y'all doing? Look, why are you watching her?
It's men sleeping with her. They ain't out here.
You ain't drag him out. All her 5 husbands who ain't hers, or whatever the word said. Like, and Jesus was like, if y'all gone somewhere, And so we can go back millennia thinking about the ways men have used the words and culture to maintain power across societies. And no. So even then, I'd be interested to see, now that I have these thoughts, I haven't been home since that poem, but I'd really love to talk to my father about all of this now.
Now, to be clear, Pop's name is Carl.
Carl
Okay.
is my daddy. Carl Russell.
I love to shout out parents,
Yes.
ancestors,
Yes.
specifically the ones who aren't here. I feel like when we call their name, we invite their energy and their love into a space to just
And
contribute.
Carl is still with us.
Yeah, 100%.
So we're clear.
My bad, Carl, brother Carl. I
Now,
hope you watch this.
My mother Eva is an ancestor,
Okay.
but Carl is still alive and well. He'll be 70 in a few weeks.
He'll be 70?
June 10th. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So I'll be seeing him soon. We're going home.
So it sounds like you're taking the framework of Christianity and you're applying it to your life in a way that makes the most sense for you. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you get pushback from Christians for doing that?
No, not lately. But I can honestly say I haven't had these deeper conversations with any of my friends. I just got comfortable making this exploration after I was divorced in 2022. And again, that's because I was in church. I was in this white evangelical space. I was with this man, this good, godly man, and who was raised in the church. I didn't have conversations like this with him. It's almost as if the divorce actually opened me up, like freed me up to really explore who I am on a spiritual level. And so,
why don't you feel you could do that in your marriage?
Because as good of a brother as he is, I'll say is because he's still alive and well. Again,
I feel you.
As good of a brother as he is, he could be quite critical and quite judgmental. And again, he was raised in church. And so one of the mistakes that I made is because I wasn't, I would give more power to the people who were.
Yeah.
You know, I've even had close friends, like sister friends, who were raised in Pentecostal churches. And so I saw them as being more spiritually mature than me because they'd spent more time in church.
Hence, thank God I wasn't
raised in church. Yeah.
What did he have any feedback when he heard the poem?
He loved it.
Did he? Okay.
He loved it. And what's funny is, and within months we were separated. The irony. So it was interesting because I remember after I performed it, after service, our pastor, we had left the church he had been raised in, and we were in a new, more relaxed, more non-denominational, more multicultural, just a better church. And the pastor came up and was like, Nina, oh my gosh, love the piece. That's great. And he says, oh yeah, when she was writing it, I remember feeling X, Y, and Z. She would share pieces with me. And I was like, I didn't share any of this with you. Like, we don't discuss my writing. Mm-hmm. And so like that moment of inauthenticity kind of made clear the greater issues that I was already feeling, that already had me looking at the marriage like, okay, Lord, something different needs to happen.
Okay.
So he heard it and was impressed by it and even tried to take some credit, if you will, of being part of the process. And I was like, I ain't sharing none of this with you. Or maybe a line or two here, but we didn't deeply discuss it in like.
Yeah, we weren't in a writer's room getting feedback
Right.
and moving this around.
Surely not for you to stand up in front of this man and be like, oh yes, I'm so proud when she was writing it, I, X, Y, and Z. You didn't have any hand in this, bruh. Bless his heart.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Yes,
And you looking, I can tell you already know it.
I'm ready. Go ahead.
What happened to the marriage?
In the words of our Christian therapist that we started seeing finally a couple of months after this poem, she said, you all have really over spiritualized this entire thing from the beginning. So we'd been married at this point for 13 years.
Ooh. 2022.
Yeah, 2022 was 14 years. But we literally separated January 1st of 2022. So I met him in 2006 when I was in a very tumultuous kind of upheaval. I'd been out of the military for about a year. I'd lost a home, lost a car, like just trying to make sense of life after the military. I didn't plan as well as I could have. I was in between homes and things, and met him at a time where apparently I needed added security. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to come back to Christ, do the right thing, be a good, godly woman.
And there's a starter kit for that.
And it's him. This is a good, godly man.
Yeah.
He's
in the starter kit.
But he had issues that we never discussed as far as intimacy, as far as being vulnerable. We were great friends, and we probably should have remained great friends. But because we were trying to do right, this seemed like a natural progression. And I remember even when it came down to like our marriage, like premarital counseling, his pastor, like we filled out like these like questionnaires, like separately. And then we turned them into the pastor. And so basically, because we did talk about everything, he's looking at these answers like, oh, you all are compatible in like every way. Excuse me. So he was basically like, you don't really need this premarital counseling. But what ended up happening is the deeply rooted things that we should have been discussing, we weren't. So we got married, and that's kind of, but from the beginning, it was good, but it's like I lived with a great roommate for all the years. And because I could really go deep. Again, intimacy was difficult, and we didn't have sex before marriage because we were trying to honor God and remain pure. And so the things that I thought was just us being good was actually us not connecting. So I literally in my mind thought, okay, we'll save ourselves. This is after I done did all the things, okay? So I'm way more experienced than him. So the whole other thing, right?
Okay.
I thought once we get married, like, and we honor God, God would honor our wedding and things would be fine. And they were not. And then I kept praying and kept thinking, okay, we're growing. Okay, we're trying. Okay, but the conversations around those things never happened.
I saw some of the videos that you guys did.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Meet the Brutons.
Meet the Brutons.
Seems like a nice guy. You
He's
guys
great.
seem like y'all connected well. He had good energy. And some of the stuff that you guys were talking about felt surface. I mean, obviously it was, I know everything ain't tuned the fork, right? So I know some people ain't gonna say certain things that I would say online.
Right.
But I do feel like that's a form of, light is a disinfectant. Mm-hmm. Things can't sustain in the light.
Yeah.
And people might feel a certain way sometimes when I say certain things on camera, but it's how I feel at the time. And it's not intended to hurt anybody, but it is intended for me to share whatever the truth is in that moment.
Yeah.
To my, at it, as deeply as I can, as deeply as my awareness will allow me to in that moment. Okay. That's probably a better way to say it. And some of this shit sounds wild, and then some of this shit sounds great, but it's all intended to get to the truth of something.
Yeah.
Did you feel like your relationship was kind of like that, but just all the time in a way?
Yeah, very surface. Very surface. To the point where there was even infidelity, pardon me, hitting the microphone, infidelity on my part. And it was discovered. And to him, it was exposed to him. And he forgave. And then we just moved on. We never discussed what got us here. And so we were married a whole other 10 years after the infidelity, but we never discussed, we kept it on the surface. We kept it moving, and he's dealing with things over here internally. I'm dealing with things over here internally. And then, like I said, about 2 years before what ultimately led to divorce, I wasn't saying like, Lord, get me out this marriage. Lord, I want to get divorced. That was never, ever part of my prayer. I said my prayer was, okay, Lord, something different needs to happen. We both deserve more. And so I remember praying like, protect our hearts and our minds in this process, but do whatever is best for us individually and collectively. That was my prayer. Lord, whatever happens, do whatever's best for us individually and collectively. I want him to be at peace. He deserves better, and I surely do. So what is that going to take? And time would pass, and that kind of continued to be my prayer. And we started going to therapy in fall of 21.
Okay.
And in November, it was November 2021. And we would leave the most of the sessions would be her just drawing out of him, because again, he wasn't a very vulnerable person. He wasn't, it was oftentimes I'm sitting in there like, I could see that. Or like, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I've already kind of peeped that. I've already, right? Yeah. As she's calling things out, I'm like, yeah, okay. And she'd just be drawing at him, going all the way back to his childhood, like trying to dig deep. And then when we would leave, we wouldn't do the homework. We're still not talking on a deeper level. We'd try here and there, and then it just got too awkward. And I remember the last week of that year, the last few weeks was just, we were just kind of coexisting. And then we fell asleep before midnight, New Year's Eve. I remember us having like French 75s or something to drink. And we kind of fell asleep like on the couch, and he's over here in his spot, and we got up and we went to bed and got up the next morning, and it was a Saturday morning, and we went for a walk. And I was talking to him about I wrote a memoir, and I was talking to him about my book that I was kind of starting to do some work on. And there was an ex that I had thought I wrote about in the book. And I was like, I was talking to him as we're on our walk. We hadn't been even a mile in. And I was like, I was reading through Dramas of Baldhead Queen, his name. I was reading through my book, and I left out something. And he said, you probably left it out because you didn't want to hurt me. And I was like, well, maybe. And he said, look, let me ask you something. He said, please don't worry about hurting me. Just give me the truth. I was like, okay. And we're walking. He said, do you want to be married to me or not? And I could not give a firm yes. And when I kind of paused, he said, that's a no. And we walked and talked and cried and talked 5 miles, and we get back to the house, and by the time we got back, we were separated.
Did you ever want to be married truly? Or did you just feel that that's what you needed to do?
I didn't. It's funny you asked that, because no, I think in my 20s, early 20s, I remember just thinking, like always imagining myself as like the single rich auntie. Like, I give single rich auntie vibes, right? Not the single, working on the rich. I am truly an auntie. But
that's funny.
I again, once spiritually, I was looking to grow and I felt as if I had to, in order to be this good, godly woman,
Yeah.
I had to be married in order to do that.
And maybe subconsciously he knew that.
I think he knew. Yeah. I've even said it'd be interesting to like talk to him now. He ain't ready for all that, but
Yeah.
like I'm really like curious to know how he perceived our relationship now, looking back.
I commend you for being honest.
Thank you.
Specifically about all of it, but specifically about the infidelity.
Yeah.
It's a lot of women doing a lot of wild shit and will not own it.
Yeah.
Unless it's shared under the guise of like some real wild shit that the dude is doing.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't cheated on me the 30th time, so it's that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You had a good dude.
Yeah.
On paper, everything, because all of us are coming to these intersections of relationships with our stuff. You know what I mean? And he probably has his version of a story that he's telling about you to somebody else on another podcast.
Yeah.
But the reality is, that's what I feel like the marriage is there and designed to do, to create the container, to be the container that you work things through with. But sometimes it's just not that. And as rigid and as committed as you want to be to this thing, there is an eject button underneath in the far back under a lock, a thumbprint scanner, and then because we all there are some things that are. Did you have guilt? You initiated the divorce, or no?
Well, again, through conversation that day, he was like, if yes, you want to be married isn't the answer, then the answer is no. And I agreed. I was like, you're right. And I think at that point I was over, and I remember him saying, like, maybe within weeks we were still, for like a month we were still living until we could figure out like where to go and what our next moves were. And I remember him like saying like, but we failed. And I was like, but we haven't failed. We've had a great life. Mm-hmm. This isn't failure. Failure would be keep on knowing this shit ain't it. Right? Knowing that we both deserve better. Failing would be, and you see this happen often. I know a sister friend right now who is still married and she ain't lived with her husband for like 7 years because he refuses to sign the papers. Because he's in the church, he's a deacon, he's a this, he's a that, and he don't want to make it look like they failed. Meanwhile, y'all living totally separate lives.
Y'all failing.
Like, what sense does that make? Why are we, I'd rather us, and my ex-husband's remarried. He just got remarried this past fall. Lovely little family. She has a son. And I finally made the decision to go back to my maiden name after I knew he was good. Because again, he's such a good dude. I didn't feel guilt. I felt relief. I didn't consciously feel guilt.
Okay.
Let me say that. I remember talking to who I call my God baby mamas. We share, there's one with the godchildren, and then we share like our couples, like husbands, and we all share godchildren. So they my God baby mamas, and I still keep up with them. And back in October, I think I must have been like, how's Mr. And I called him Mr. Bruton all the time. Like, so I was like, how's Mr. Bruton doing? And one of them was like, he's good. He's really good. And kind of just smiled. And I was like, okay, like and this is on Marco Polo. So like, you leave messages. Mm-hmm. It's not real time. You leave each other video messages. And so the actual God baby mama got on, and finally she's like, girl, he's good. He's dating somebody. And I was like, and I wept, like I just broke. And I felt like a lift, like a heaviness that I didn't even recognize was still there, that lifted off of me. And they know me to cry over everything anyway. I'm a Cancer. They know me to cry over everything. So I cried, but it was like joy. Like I was like, okay, he's good.
Yeah.
He's good, because in my mind, looking back, I still felt guilt about leaving. I was hoping he wasn't over there still, in his feelings and dealing, And so it's almost like, and I remember that was the day that I was like, I'm finally going to change my name. Like I've wanted to go back to my maiden name for the past 2, at that time, 2 years. But even when it first happened, I was afraid of like turning the knife, right? Like not only am I leaving you, but damn you and your last name. No, I didn't want to do that. So I held on to Bruton for a couple of years. But it's like the moment I knew he was good, I was like, bet. Look on it is. I'm going back to my maiden name.
So, kids.
Professional auntie. We tried. We almost went like the IVF route, but I was like, first of all, in my mind, I was like, part of the problem is we just simply ain't having sex enough. 1. 2, if we're gonna spend all this money, we can adopt children. Like there's children who need, right? So I wasn't gonna spend money. In my brain, I couldn't justify spending money to get pregnant. Like it's the way my brain works. I'm too practical for all that.
Understood.
And I remember when we separated, I was like, thank God we don't have no children. Like that didn't happen, because that makes things 10 times more complicated, right? Mm-hmm. And so, nah. And I honestly, again, looking back, I never imagined myself with children.
You did not?
No, not beyond adoption. I like to perhaps raise and guide children, but I really thought like I'd be the single, and I always thought that I couldn't have children for the longest time. And there were issues with fibroids and all the things.
Okay.
Lord bless him, he'd been through it with me, with all of that. The crazy part is, it just occurred to me, I didn't start having issues with fibroids until I got married. Yeah. I've been given this thought recently, like pinpointing, and it's almost as if my body were telling me,
yeah,
girl, no. And then ever since then, I mean, they're probably still in there now, but I haven't had any issues since I've been divorced.
That's crazy. You're from Wichita, Kansas. Mm-hmm. How did you get to Washington, D.C.?
Somewhere over the rainbow. Let's see. So, my first trip to DC I was 13.
Damn.
Yeah, I was 13. And I used to be part of this National Anti-Drug Coalition, like their youth advisory committee. So my mother and I was like, shout out to Mr. Paget, Sherman Paget, who just retired. He, nominated me for this organization or whatever. And so I fell in love with DC then. I was like, oh my God. I used to watch Teen Summit every Saturday morning on BET. I knew I was like remember the posse in my mind. Like, I love DC. Fell in love with the blackness, with the culture, with the trees, because Kansas, a lot of trees. And I was always like, I'm a live in DC. That was the goal. I thought I'd go to Howard. That was my original goal, but I ended up checked up in love by the time I graduated high school. And the end of high school was all kinds of tumultuous all by itself. And so I was at home. I was in Wichita. I went 3 semesters at Wichita State. Again, working full-time, going to school full-time, shacked up full-time. So I had a boyfriend, taking care of the home, doing all the things. I put in Dramas of a Bald-Head Queen. I said I was living an adult life with a child's experience. Like, I'm trying to hold this whole thing together to the point where by semester number 3, I was like, broke off the engagement. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Mm-hmm. And that brother was good to me, but not good for me. And my father was like, sweetheart, just move back home. he built out a room for me in like his old work space that he had. He's like, just move back home, stop working, just focus on school. I was like, all right, cool. Tired of being an adult. Let me just move back home, right? So I'm 20 years old, and my father, he's a veteran of the Air Force as well. And he did like 1 enlistment or something, maybe 2. And most of his siblings were also in some form, but they're from small town Kentucky. So like everybody's joining the military just to get out, right?
Okay.
And for years, he's like, sweetheart, you should really. I was like, ain't nobody going out there military. Like, nah, bruh, that ain't me. Do you know me? That ain't me. And this one day during spring break of my 3rd semester, we were in the kitchen talking, and he was like, sweetheart, you should really, like, he gave it one last go. And I was like, okay.
Oh, wow.
I was just ready I wasn't engaged. I wasn't in a relationship anymore. I was tired of being in Wichita. I didn't have any prospects for like career, right? I'm a creative in this space that isn't very creative. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right. And I remember the shock on his face, like, oh, shoot, okay. So we went to the phone book, right? Because we used to, go to the actual phone book. Yes, the year is now it's 2000. So we still had phone books, and I literally went to the Yellow Pages and like found a recruiter. And that was a Monday. That Thursday, I was taking my ASVAB in Oklahoma City and took my little test and, got my scores back and was planning to leave after I turned 21, which would have been June 26th of that year. I was like, I'm turning 21. I'll leave for basic training after, And my recruiter called me and was like, so we'll give you a $5,000 sign-on bonus if you leave by May 31st for basic training. And I was
so you left at May 31st?
Bet I'm out. Let's go. $5,000. I've never got
That's like $50,000, $100,000. It might as well be. Yeah.
And I was like, let's go. So I literally turned 21 in basic training. So basic training in San Antonio, Texas, where Air Force basic training is. Went to tech school in Biloxi, Mississippi at Keesler Air Force Base. Failed out of my career field. Had been stationed back in Wichita. Like, I remember getting my orders. My MTL came up the stairs and was like, I got your orders. And I was like, all right, bet. And I had put like, Andrews, like everything around DC. But because of my career field, which at the time was airfield management, he was like, do you like The Wizard of Oz? And I knew, because I'm from Kansas, I knew where the jokes, like I always heard the jokes. I burst into tears. And he was like, what is the process? I'm from Wichita. I didn't join the military to go back home. So I think subconsciously I failed out of my career field. And so I ended up staying in Biloxi for a few more months. And then I got reclassed into like admin. And my next set of orders were to Langley down in Hampton, Virginia. And I remember when I put my new preferences for bases, Andrews, like DC was right there, Bowling, Andrews, but I kind of punked out and put Langley. I was like, that's close enough to DC.
Why? Why'd you pick Langley?
I still don't know. I didn't think that I was ready for the city. I was like, Virginia's close enough. And so I got stationed in Hampton, Virginia, which is 3 hours from here. And baby, I was up and down 95 every week. Cause I was up here on U Street. I'm at Bar None. I'm at Every Poetry, at Mangoes. I mean, I came to know DC so well to the point where when I moved back this time, people are like, oh, welcome home. And I was like, I've actually never lived here.
Yeah, I thought you got a, and by the way, I want to give you an award, the first Tune the Fork Award.
What award
Let me
is
make
this?
sure I look this up. Give me 1 second.
Like, what is this award about?
Do you know when Instagram came out?
2009?
10.
Okay.
October. Do you know when you made your first Instagram post?
No.
2011.
I do. Okay, yeah.
I was scrolling for like damn near half an hour trying to get to your first Instagram post.
And it's a picture of my friend Corinne.
Yes. And I'm scrolling and I'm like, and I'm looking, I'm reading as I'm going through.
That's funny.
And I'm just going back and I was like, I had gotten down to 2015 and I was like, wait, Instagram is older than 2015, and I kept scrolling. I had to go online and look.
And I was late. I was late to the game.
But you were only late by like 6 months, Nina.
I guess so.
I signed up in 2020.
Really?
Yeah. So
that's funny.
And
a lot of people will clear everything and start over.
Why would they do that?
People do it all the time. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't get it.
I would never do that.
They clear the whole thing. Stars do this. The rapper IDK is one that stands out for some reason. I went to go find like some old post of his and was like, there are 3 posts here. What? Like, people do that all the time. It's something with this generation, like the younger people. And then I've been seeing some folks my age doing the same thing, like just starting over. And I'm like, okay, and I keep it because I want people to go and be able to see if they care to go back so far to see. And I often want to see what has changed.
The transition.
Just
make sure if you go look at Baldhead Queen, if you want to scroll through, just make sure you get you a glass of wine, a beer, whatever your joint is, because it's going to be a minute.
I remember that first post.
It's going to be a minute.
Yep, because when Instagram first started, it was photography based.
Pictures.
And my friend Corinne is like a street photographer, and we were sitting in Barnes & Noble in Hampton. I will never forget. And she was like, you should really? And I was like, what? I ain't joining no Instagram, whatever. I was the same way with Twitter, late. And then I took a picture of her, and it was heavily filtered. And I was
it was 2011, so...
Yep.
The quality of picture phone, no, it looks like a 2011 picture phone picture.
Like yep.
But
it may have been a BlackBerry.
Ooh.
Or like a 2011. Nope, I was with iPhone by then. I got my first iPhone in 2008.
And I don't want to veer from how you got here because it was okay.
But that's ultimately how I got here is through Instagram. No, So I did. I was stationed down there. I separated in 2005 from the Air Force. Oh, well, let me back up. So I was in Biloxi, Mississippi, got reclassed, and then got stationed in Hampton. And again, it was so close to DC that, in your 20s, it wasn't nothing for me to hop on the road and drive up. I remember having my uniform in the car, and I'd change, and sometimes I'd be on U Street till 2 a.m., and then I'd drive back, and sometimes I'd just go. Sometimes I would just go straight to base. Shower in the gym, get dressed, and just go to work. Just 20-year-old teens.
You weren't... Why did you feel like you weren't ready for the city? Was it like some Midwest shit?
Maybe. Well, and it's crazy because, you know what? I don't think I deserved it. I didn't. Now that I'm looking back, and it's funny because when I first moved to the area in 2022, the home I was living in is a mile from Andrews Air Force Base. And I will never forget, it's in my phone somewhere because I have a ton of video journals in my phone.
Okay.
And I remember doing a video and driving past Andrews, and it's almost like I came full circle, and it's like Spirit was like, this is where you should have been the whole time. But because I doubted myself as a creative, I doubted myself as a poet. I was with these behemoths of like spoken word artists, people who are now Grammy winners and like these huge personalities. I never thought I was that good. And so DC seemed like I wasn't ready for it. Like I'm not ready for that full time, which is dumb as hell. Cause thinking how much further along I'd be had I been in the creative, like really in the creative community that I longed to be a part of.
I saw in one of the interviews you did on a brother's podcast, and y'all were talking about imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. Was it something along that as it relates to that period of time?
I suppose so, yeah. And even now, I'm finding myself like, nah, girl, like, let's go get it.
Yeah.
It's crazy how you will find yourself in proximity to greatness and how it can negatively impact you instead of being the thing that motivates you to move forward and do the great work, right? And back then I didn't have language for, I didn't know imposter syndrome, but I suppose that's what it was. You know, I'm here with, you know, Jay Ivy and Queen Sheba and John Good and like Mahogany Brown and these amazing artists that I've admired for all these years. And I have a poem about it. I don't have it memorized, but it's called Giants and Grasshoppers, and how I'm a grasshopper among giants is what I felt like. And DC felt like, I think that Hampton Roads felt safe to me. I didn't trust myself because I had had my own bout of alcoholism, particularly in my 20s and things. I think that I thought DC would be too much for me.
How old are you?
I'll be 46 next month.
Okay. What's your relationship to doubt and fear now?
I've overcome a lot in the past few years as I've been rebuilding my life as a single, as an individual without a husband to think about. Or I think that my time at Eaton has been a training ground for me because, again, I'm in proximity with amazing people that I would have never imagined knowing or having their numbers in my phone, or right. And so there are still moments where I don't write because I don't feel like I'm good enough, or I don't have a story anyone wants to hear. But at the same time, now I've grown enough to where I'm able to say, girl, get over yourself. God would not have put you in proximity to these individuals, to these opportunities, if you were not. I feel like Kat talked about this when she was with you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. And it comes down to either you're going to step up to the plate or you're not. And I'm at that point now where I believe God. It took me all this time.
Wow, that's beautiful.
But like, I'm not putting you into these situations if you're not capable of navigating them in standing firm in the places I put you. I hate that it's taken me so long to believe God.
I have this saying, and I posted it for my birthday last year. My birthday is September 8th. And I'm starting to see myself the way God does. And there are moments when I can connect with it. And there's this like, I've got to use several words because my brain can describe the feeling, but one word isn't enough to like contain the feeling. But it's like bliss. It's like completeness, full, enough. Like there's a way in which I can look at me and see no flaw anywhere in the structure. Mm-hmm. Even at what I saw was a flaw, my brain is turning that into a feature of the full
of the model.
Thank you.
I got you. Wow.
And it's crazy to have spent so much time doubting. It's sad. So it makes me sad at times to think of how much time is wasted.
Yeah.
And I wanted to share this with you. We can't see anything in someone else if it's not in us.
Ain't that something?
So the greatness that you are seeing in these people that you are around is in you.
Yeah.
And you can use that as confirmation of that fact. But that's just one part of that process, right? Because as you were saying before, it's the story behind the story, it's the voice behind the voice. It's because that is forever present.
Mm-hmm.
I think we just get better at managing it, not necessarily, at least for me, I don't know if it going away is the goal as much as it is getting better, telling equal counter truths to that voice.
Yeah.
As kind of like the yin to the yang of what that is.
Yeah.
But sometimes if I don't add the counter narrative to the voice, it can get louder at times, and then it starts to overshadow everything, and then I start getting into these bouts of depression or whatever, like these negative mental thoughts are. But have you ever struggled with any of that?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And I think that it takes us being gracious with ourselves. Because one of my first thoughts when you think about, why didn't you just come to DC? Why you punk out? And I would basically ask myself that, girl, what? And so the goal was to, then I had to work through not getting caught up on why I wasted 20 years in fear, living this life down in Hampton Roads. That was good, but it wasn't where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Right? So now I'm not getting caught up in that guilt. So that's been one of my greatest lessons, is to be gracious with myself, right? This idea of being able to see greatness in other people and not ourselves, I think that what I've learned is that it's because you think about a sculptor. I had a barber tell me this once. He was cutting a design in my hair. And he acknowledged sculptors and how you start off with this thing, in this case with the hair, head of hair or some clay, and it becomes what it is by taking pieces away, not adding to it, but taking pieces away, right? When you're sculpting, they're throwing the clay, they're literally throwing the clay away to make a figure. When you're getting a haircut, whether it be a design or whatever in your head, your edges, whatever, to make it what it's supposed to be, you're cutting pieces away. And our humanity is that same way. And again, this goes all the way back to and this is why therapists, I guess, are always go to your childhood, because you come into the world as a thing, and then we spend the rest of our lives becoming, but part of that becoming is also a shedding away of what we're not, to become who we are. Because our parents had put their expectations on us, teachers, society, all these things have been placed on us from the very beginning. Oh, you bad. Oh, you this. Oh, you fast. Right? All these things. And so we spend most of our adult lives trying to shed away the things that we're not, to find who we are, who we've always been, and what we've always been, and to be able to see what's in us. I wrote a book now 12 years ago, and I spent so many years telling the same story about why that book wasn't X, Y, and Z, or why I haven't gotten any further along creatively, or why. And it's wait a minute, why am I focused on this story instead of rewriting a new story of who I am and who I'm becoming in that part of the journey? So it's my prayer that we continue to spend time in the light, right? and allow the light to be the safe space for us to be and to grow and to become. Allow the light to drive out the shadows and the expose the blind spots, and then use the light to go forward and become.
What are some examples of things you've had to shed up to this point in your life?
The fear, the doubt, the fear that I've had fears that I don't meet people's expectations, fear that I don't. That's been one of the things. And I remember even when the book came out, anytime I do something creatively, I remember telling people, now tell me the truth. If you don't like it, like, let me know. Don't be lying to me because you love me. Right?
So you one of them?
I'm like, please. But then people, like, don't tell me things because you want to save my feelings. Like, I want to know the truth about the things that I can do better. I think that one of my greatest issues is that I've always been quite self-aware, but to a fault. So, like, I might see something in myself that I would like to change, but instead of saying, oh, okay, the fear is there or the doubt is there, and then doing something about it, or what's a better example? I'm highly sensitive, highly emotional, right?
Okay.
So instead of seeing that as a negative, which is what I've done in the past, oh, I'm aware of the thing, and then, oh, you're weak and you're like, I've come up with all these things that being sensitive and I hold on to
You're adding to it.
I'm adding to it. Whereas, yes, I'm sensitive. Yes, I feel very deeply.
Period.
No
comma. No but.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
But learn to navigate that and then to use it to not just your advantage, but for the betterment of everyone around you. People need people who feel deeply to be in their circle.
Yeah.
To hold space for them.
Yeah.
Right? I hold space for people in ways that they've never experienced before.
Yeah.
And it takes me being this soft person to provide that space. And that's not a weakness.
Not at all. You know, it was when I had Rissy come on, we were talking about, you know, we come here so complete, so flawless. And all of this shit gets added on as you start living, right? And then, you know, somebody tells you that's a chair, that's a table, that's a desk, you could do the same shit on all of them, but we've created these functions for all of these individual things and frameworks. You don't jump on the couch, you don't sleep on the table, blah, 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 right? And then you have these gifts that are being demonstrated that the world can't put in a box and label it gift. But then you've got all these other things that you came here that are gifts that is typically labeled a gift. And one of the things she used was she loved rearranging her room. And she had this relationship to space and moving things around. And no one in her life could recognize or at least even see a glimpse of this being a form of creativity and art. And she had to wait until she was older to really understand like what she has been compelled to do her whole life that no one wrote on the box gift, that she had to write it on there her fucking self. So we're reclaiming so many of these things and defining them for ourselves and creating new standards of what success and is, because what the world is imposing on us most times is not to our advantage, it's to some other force's advantage that's either to, you know, take advantage of us or whatever. Because that was my gift has always, I don't say always, how do I say it? I'm a connector too. But I always use my gift to talk shit. I was real good at talking shit. And I use my gift to take advantage of women. But take advantage, period. I was using my gift not for good.
Understood.
So it was
my father's child.
I had to get around other people and be like, yo, man, you can do this thing in another way.
Yes.
You don't have to But I never thought, I remember somebody telling me, you have something to say. And I remember looking at them like, nobody would want to fucking listen to me.
Like you talking shit anyway.
Like all I do is talk shit. What is
Yes.
Like what is that? Like nobody wants to really hear. And he was like, nah, man. And all of it is I don't feel we're becoming. I feel the shedding that the analogy that the barber was using is a mental endeavor of the person is there. It's just I guess it is to me, becoming means a process. When I feel we could literally just be. The becoming, I feel, is something that we create because it's hard for our brains to process the idea that we're already that.
That's good. Yeah.
Because the thing that we're shedding, the fear, like that's literally a choice that we can make in a millisecond. But we've got to create all of these stories and obstacles and narratives and therapy and training and books and writing and fucking singing and podcasts and all of that kind of stuff. To be like, oh, I'm in this process, I'm on this journey. No, nigga, just stop being afraid. And
it really is that simple, right?
And I think now the journeys that we take to play the game helps us, I think, maybe reach the realization to just literally decide, but we could have always just decided.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you think about the decision to put Langley as my first choice as opposed to Andrews, Air Force Base, right? Choice. I let fear choose for me that day. And I put Langley instead of Andrews. So I ended up in Virginia instead of Maryland, right outside of DC, right? It's so crazy the way fear works, man. And the way we'll talk ourselves out of so much life and so much knowing of ourselves because of comfort, because of proximity to comfort, perceived peace of mind. But I'm most at peace when I am me, when I'm doing, right? I've been thinking about what success is recently. And it is like, am I at peace doing a thing? Then I'm successful at it. Does it bring me peace? Does it bring the people around me peace? Then that's a level of success to me. Whether I'm at Eaton, whether I'm managing a shop in Union Market, whether I'm serving tables. I can be successful in any of these spaces, regardless of how much money I'm making. Who am I impacting? Am I bringing peace? Am I leaving people in places better than I find them?
Yeah.
This is success to me.
And we're not redefining the concept because we're letting the world project it onto us.
Right.
And when we're not meeting that expectation, then is when all of that fear and anxiety and stuff comes along. But it's like, no, like natively, whatever the thing is you're doing, technically, you're probably successful in doing it because look how much shit you had to overcome to get to the restaurant.
Just to get to it. Yeah. Yeah.
And then to work through the day. Your heart had to pump blood. You had to do a gang of shit you made. So it's, all of it is reframing and unlearning to the point. And I guess maybe I talked myself out of the shed.
Back to becoming.
Back to becoming.
Yes. I have a poem that says, it's called Ever Becoming. And it says, we owe no explanation. It's not up to us to make others more comfortable. How does it start off? We owe no explanation for who we are. And it goes on to say, like, it's not up to us to make others more comfortable with our fragile limbs, with our delicate leaves, with, you know, the bends in our branches or the thickness of our trunks. Trees do not offer up solace when their leaves turn away from the sun, falling to their demise. They simply are becoming. There's a constant blooming, shedding, dying, blooming, shedding. Like, there's trees in nature have this cyclical, it's constant. And trees don't ask for no permission to do that. Nature doesn't ask for permission to, right? Nature is simply in the season, in moving according to the season. We as humans have to begin to see ourselves as nature, because we are, and understand that we have seasons as well. And so we don't have to convince anyone that we're good enough or that we're smart enough, or right. In my work at Eaton, I was telling you earlier about this kind of the dynamics in that. Like, I spent months, while we're talking about wasted time, I spent months worrying about whether I was doing my job incorrectly, because I have this person who has her own experience in hospitality that doesn't align with who I am as an individual. And she's not leaving space for who I am as an individual in this space. So I have to say, I finally had to get to the point, like, hold on, I'm not doing this wrong. I'm just not doing it the way you do it.
Yeah. Like my wife making my bed.
Like your wife making your bed. That was so great. You don't make the bed like that. Well, why not? Is the bed made?
It was made.
The bed was made.
The bed was made.
Okay? Nothing that I'm doing is causing Eaton to lose money. It's not causing Eaton to close.
Mm-hmm.
Baby, ain't nobody coming here investigating nothing. Not because of me. Honey, the fear, I started sleeping better. I said, why did I waste so much damn time worried about doing this thing that's wrong, doing this thing wrong that has yet to become? It's a new idea. Mission-driven hospitality is a whole new concept. So everyone's doing the shit wrong right now.
Yeah, until you develop in the process. Can we talk about your mom? I would love to learn about her.
Yes.
I couldn't find much information about her.
I
know her birthday is in April, 1954.
Yes.
Her name's Eva?
Eva.
Tell me about her.
Eva, I have her smile.
Okay.
Yes, she was born in Germany in 1954. My mother, she passed in 2003, so that's why there's not a lot online about her, because she hasn't been here to be a part of that, right? Okay. Part of that world. So she is what we call Mischlikinder. So
she's what?
Mischlikinder.
Mischlikinder.
So she's a brown baby in German.
Oh.
So she's the product of an African-American soldier, to my knowledge, an African-American soldier in post-World War II Germany who got a German woman pregnant, and that German woman was like, oh, hell no, I can't have this black baby, and put her in an orphanage, like gave her away. So she was adopted by a black family from the States who was also in the Army, and they adopted 2 biracial children from separate families. My Uncle Edward also was orphaned, and they were brought to the States and raised in Clarksville, Tennessee.
Okay.
So these light-skinned children, my adopted grandparents, were dark-skinned, both of them. They were older. My grandmother passed in 1984, so I didn't really know her. My grandfather passed the year after I graduated high school, but by then, he and my mother's, she's the black sheep. She's a lesbian.
Your mom was the black sheep?
Yes.
For being a lesbian?
Yeah.
I got you. Okay.
More than likely.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you.
Because again, black folks in Tennessee, small town Tennessee in the 60s. And it's funny because my father, in around 2006, his mother passed away. And my life is comedy. So his mother passed away, and I didn't grow up with grandparents. I didn't grow up like with cousins. We have a huge family, but poverty. And us living in Kansas, we didn't get to travel and like visit with family a lot. So when my father's mother passed, I met them down. I was living in Virginia at the time. I traveled home to Tennessee to go to attend the funeral. And so my father and my brother and I were sitting outside chatting, and he was kind of giving us this, he's reminiscing and giving us all the, the tea, if you will. And so he says, yeah, bless his heart. And I remember him trying to get my mother back, like after they divorced when I was 2. And I remember vividly, like him one drunken night was like, even, like trying to holler. And she's like, I'm not into you. Like, we've been here. But at my young age, I didn't know what she was saying. I didn't know she was gay yet. And we'll get to that in a minute. So he's telling us in 2006, like, yeah, I met your mother. We were from like neighboring counties. So like their high schools would play each other, type things. So they knew each other just through the community. And they always knew she was different. He's like, everyone knew she was different. And so they were good friends. And so they figured if she got married and had children, it would fix her. And so somewhere along the line, she agreed. And they got married to get fixed. It did not, because that's not the way it works.
It is not. We
know now that's not the way it works. And so they got married. They had my brother. And then I was born 2 years later, and then they were divorced 2 years after that. So, yeah, by the time I was 2, they were divorced. We left and lived with our mother at first. I remember we left with our mother. We spent time in a children's home. And I still don't, because she's passed, and I started putting all these pieces together kind of late. I don't remember why she put us in the children's home, but she was in and out of hospitals, and I thought that it was, come to find out later, they were like, she was like in rehab, because while my father's over here drinking, she's like a cokehead.
Gotcha.
So I don't know if she were like why she put us into the children's home, but she had to spend some time away. So I don't know if it was like what the medical issue was, and we never did get around to that before she passed.
Okay.
But my father says that someone approached him, like a mutual friend saw my brother and I with a group out at a park, and it was the children's home. Like, we were with the group from the children's home, and so the person said that they saw and like didn't see our mother around. It's like, what is this group that I know these kids, like, who are they with? So they found my father and was like, they approached the group and was like, where are y'all from? Like, is this a field trip? Like, they kind of inquired, and they were like, oh, we're from the Wichita Children's Home. And they were like, oh, okay, well, great. Y'all have it, kind of did some, reconnaissance, and then went and found my dad and was like, yo, your kids are in the children's home. He's like, what? And so basically he came and got us. Like, I don't remember how even all that happened, but from there, eventually they released us to him. He had to prove and all the things. And so from the time I was 4, 5, I think we may have been in the children's home for maybe a year or so. And we went with our father. And so we were with him until we were, like I said, I was 10. And he had 1, 2, we were in multiple houses and we never had our own home. His third wife, my second stepmother, was legit crazy. And he didn't know until after the fact. And she threatened us one evening. And my brother heard them arguing in the back of the house. And our bedrooms are in the front of like this small home. And he comes in, he's like, Nina, let's go. We're going to mom's. And I'm like waking up in my, like, what? And my dad came and was like, no, everything's okay. And my brother was like, no. And he snatched me up, shattered through the storm door, and like, we're out. I don't know where he thought we were going, how we were getting to mom's, but somewhere along the line, the police were called and like all this action happened, and our mother came and got us. And she was living with her roommate at the time. And we were home. And it was the most peaceful and functioning home I'd ever lived in. And a year later, we moved into a bigger, like they were living in a 2-bedroom spot. And we moved into a larger place across the street, another condo. I remember they bought a home across the street. And so we each had our own rooms for the first time. Like everything was great, but it's with these 2 lesbians, right? And my mother sat us down when I was 11 and my brother's 13. And she was like, kids, now that you're living here, I want to tell you, something or whatever. And so she's like, I want to let you know that Myrna is her name. Myrna and I were not just roommates, but we're together. We actually had a ceremony. We're married. And my brother was like, he's 13. He's like, I know. He didn't already put the pieces together. Yeah. And I'm over here like, what? Tears of the pieces. And my mom was like, girl, what? Why are you crying? And I was like, what? I like boys. I'm thinking, because she's gay.
You got to be gay.
I got to be gay. She's like, girl, what? And I remember her laughing, girl, whatever. You're so dramatic. You can like all the boys you want. And I was like, okay, all right. And she, calmed my tears and all the things. And we lived this great little life for the next, 8 years or whatever. And then that all fell to hell my senior year. And you look at the dynamics of relationships, and I remember my mother's ex telling me, you'll understand it when you're older. And I'm 17 now, so I'm like, what do you mean? I'm grown.
I can't know any more than I know now.
What could I possibly have to learn? And they broke up. My mother was a lot. She was a lot. She had mental health issues, multiple personality disorder, depressive moments. And yeah, after that relationship, she just Myrna cheated on her, and then they broke up. This is all at the beginning of my senior year in high school. And it threw my whole world just into a whirlwind. And yeah, I barely made it out of high school because my mother was in and out of the psych ward because now she's stressed. I'm literally in her home. Myrna has moved out. I'm trying to keep my mother's home together, trying to hide her car from the repo man and trying to do all these things. And yeah.
What, did you ever learn anything about your mom's story or anything without going into detail?
No, honestly, I'm kind of exploring that now. There was, in the crazy thing is that with her, and just to be clear, my mother was also a very loving parent.
Yeah, I got you.
She was the cool mom. Everyone loved her. She was at all of our games, all of our this, all of that. That's my baby. She's that parent. But still very much tormented inside. Not having knowledge of her previous life. She came to the States when she was 6, so she does have some memory of her life in Germany. And because she did have her issues, her mental health, excuse me, she did have some issues with her mental health. I remember not always believing what she shared about her past. You didn't know how much was contrived and how much was real.
Gotcha.
Right? Not having grandparents to ask questions of, her brother has his own, we're estranged, so I don't really have any. I'm literally learning German now to try to go and do some research in Germany to try to find more information about her life.
Nobody would ever look at you and think that any of your parents was now Pops is the same color as that
He's black, yeah.
As that damn camera.
Yes, he's so dark.
Mr. Carl, and I saw the retirement part video that you guys did for him. And shout out to, hold on, damn, what's the name of it? Edge of Time Hauling. You saw it over there. Brother had his truck, and
he's retired, and now he started his business of not stopping.
Yeah, he don't strike me as a guy that's gonna stay still.
Ever.
He just with that garden and being outside and doing stuff. It was I felt good looking at that video.
He's
and
so
seeing it.
great. I love that dude.
But he's definitely the
amazing.
color of a Sony camera.
He's dark. And I wanted to be like, I remember like slathering like Palmer's cocoa butter on my skin and like I lay out, but I never get dark, like, because my mama's lighter than you.
No, really?
Yeah, she, on a good day in the summer, she'd be a little darker, but yeah, she was, yeah.
How was your men's selection? Minus the marriage. I mean, I guess.
I mean, even that was good.
I mean, in terms of, that's a good point. Because I think thank you. Mm-hmm. I asked a question that had a different motive.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you.
I've always had great guys, if that's what you're asking.
Is the intention for the relationships are you looking for a long-term thing, or was the goal all? So you're good at meeting good people. Mm-hmm. Would you say you're good at defining like what you want and communicating that?
That's a really good question. I think so. Yeah, I've never been in like a tumultuous relationship. Like, I've always had great partners, and I am the villain in a story or two. I, again, am my father's child in many ways. We're a lot alike. And so I could very well, even now, I'm not necessarily concerned with being married again.
You don't think you would want to get married again?
Not necessarily. Mm-mm. And I'm in a relationship now, and I don't know what the future holds, but I'm not necessarily like, marriage is the goal with this person. And it's also the first woman I've ever been in a relationship with.
Oh.
Right.
That's it. Okay.
So yeah, when I said my girlfriend, like, no, my actual girlfriend.
Okay.
And it was unexpected.
Were you ever attracted to women?
I have been attracted to women. I have been involved with women, but there's always been men involved.
Oh, shit, this bucket. Okay, all right, okay.
People ask me that, and I'm like, I've dealt with women, but I've never been in a relationship with a woman before.
Y'all say it like with so like, yeah, and it's just, like in my mind,
Excuse me.
It still takes me a while to connect certain dots.
Yeah.
So you've had interactions with women, but you have never been in a relationship with a woman.
Right.
How long have you been in a relationship with this person?
It's going on 3 years. Yeah. And I think that's because it did happen relatively soon after my separation and divorce, which was totally unexpected. Like, I never went looking for another relationship. Like, it's literally one of those things that, oh, you're kicking it with a person, you meet a person like, oh, okay, you're kicking it. And it's like, okay, we're still here. Okay, we're still here. Oh, wait, this is more. Okay, here we are, 3 years in almost. And I don't know. And she and I have actually had conversations recently because, of course, people want to know, like, what are we doing? Like, where is this going? And just so that, we can even plan, they can even plan for their own future. Like, okay, are you and your cat involved in this? Or like, what am I looking for in a home? Like, where am I going from here? So I've not been given like an ultimatum, like, you need to, either we gonna be together or not. It's not that. And I'm grateful for that. And where I am is still very much in the space where I'd like to continue to explore my life. Again, I don't necessarily want to get married again. at all. And surely not now.
Okay.
And so, yeah. Right now I said I'll renew my lease for at least another year and we'll see where we go from here. If nothing else, I at least still want to live alone. Because I've nearly always lived with someone else.
And you like being alone much better?
I love being alone. I love being able to just go home and just be. So yeah.
Did your ex-husband know you have been with women?
No, but it's funny. Well, I think maybe kind of in passing, I may have joked and said something about something here or there, but he didn't know details. And again, because he's a little more he's more saved than I. So.
So is that considered bisexual or?
I don't even know because I'm with this woman. So I guess I call myself, it's funny, at Eaton we have what we call a gender identity guide.
Okay.
And so there's this whole wall near the restrooms on the first floor that have from cisgender to bisexual, to questioning, there's 15, 20 different definitions. And I've been questioning is where I am because I'm finding language for what my life is, right? I don't want to. And I think that when it comes to, for the longest time, I didn't mention this relationship to my father. And it wasn't even because I was afraid of what he'd think about me being with a woman, as it was that all the other questions that have come up since I've been exploring my life in this particular season.
Okay.
The spiritual side, right? I think I'm more concerned about what he might think about
the church piece.
Yeah. But even that, it's Nina, you know him. And he ain't the one to judge nobody all the life he done lived.
Based on what you told me,
And so, right. And so I've recently been okay, Daddy, so look, in this relationship,
what was his reaction?
He's oh, okay. All right. He didn't think of anything of it. And, I said, well, he's are you safe and are you happy? And I'm yeah. He's okay. All right. And to what your question about if my ex-husband had ever known, or imagine, it's funny because once he at one point had said something how did he put it? Basically, he was if you left me, I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't date some woman. He jokingly said it. It's when I met Nicole, I remember I was
oh, that's.
Yes.
Okay.
You better put the pieces together, love.
Okay, so listen, I got a lot of female friends. 90% of them, well, none of them. The ones that I'm with now, because anyway, that's a rabbit hole. And I'm sure that I probably go out with some of my female friends and people probably look and be oh, is he messing around with her or something along those lines? Right. It's not that at all. Mm-hmm. So what I see you two, I'm okay, is there a question mark? Yeah, but I don't question beyond the question.
You want to assume one way or another.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, she's my emergency contact.
I like that.
So you know it's real.
This is real.
This is real. Yeah.
So you are happy?
I am happy.
Is this the happiest you've been?
In quite some time, yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What would you attribute that to?
Having space to grow and become, as we say, right? Being able to ask questions of God and of myself and to explore the ways that she's challenged me as a leader, as she's just really just supported me in this season in ways that I didn't realize I even needed. Right? I've grown as an individual leaps and bounds. And there may be something to the idea of, being in a relationship and finding myself in relationships in these moments of, what's the word I want to use? Because I was rebuilding my life when we met. And looking back, it's kind of the same way, again, with my ex-husband. I was in a upheaval of sorts back then. And so I think part of the fear is that I am more like my father than I care to be, in that I have this fear, and I've shared this with her, that I have this fear that I'm taking advantage of people, right? And she's also made it clear that I got you either way. Like, I believe in you, I love you, whether we're together forever or for a little while longer or whatever. I want to see you become your best self. And if I can add to that, then I will. And I can say that she's never held anything over my head. She's never required anything of me, but just don't have me out here looking like a fool. They'll be out here in these streets cutting up, and then got me, so.
I was having a conversation with someone Thursday night. Mm-hmm. And I had an edible. I don't want to get emotional. And my wife was there because we were out that night, and I was talking to my homeboy. And I looked over at my wife, and I told him, I initially picked her for a selfish reason, and she still loved me. Mm. And there was a way in which I was looking at her at an angle, mm-hmm. like that, looking at myself the way that God does. And it was like, it was the universe telling me that that's okay. Because we're all just trying our best. Mm-hmm. And there are moments in our life where we feel like we're falling and we're looking for something to grab a hold to. And sometimes we grab a hold to people. Mm-hmm. I think the objective is to be honest about that and to do the work to contribute just as much, if not more, than so that you can leave with money on the fucking books. Right. Because I did pick her for a selfish reason. But I have an obligation to pour into this thing with all of myself because of that. And it's interesting that you said that, because I literally just felt this a few days ago when I was having this conversation. I'm a fucking child, man, in so many ways. And my wife can see it, and she knows it. And I look for things. I look for her to give me things that I know she can't give me, and then I low-key judge her for not being able to do it. And it's not all the time, right? Because none of this shit is all the time. Right. There are levels to all of it and everything. And a part of me coming on here is just being honest about, like, the journey. Like, and the challenges and the thoughts that nobody share about the journey. Yeah. Because I feel like so many of us think this shit, but very few people of us are sharing these certain parts that when you do think it, it makes you feel like you wilding because you're not seeing anybody around you sharing it. Yeah. So you feel like it's just you, and it's not. Yeah. It's okay to question yourself. It's okay to be selfish. It's okay to want to run. It's okay to want to focus on yourself, but don't walk around. But like the thing you said, mighty, high and mighty. What you use the
holier than thou. Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Because that separates you from the other people. Thank you for sharing that, because I needed that. I needed that confirmation. I didn't know I needed it. I didn't know I needed it. Because as you were talking, I picked up on that with Nicole. And that says something, that says a lot about your awareness of self, that you are even making those connections and asking those questions and then having a conversation with her. Because I think it helps her show up better, will accept you more when she knows that you're acknowledging those parts of yourself.
Yeah.
It's hard to sit next to somebody when you watching them deny shit that you can see clear as day.
Right.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
Yeah. And I'm grateful that, again, that she's been gracious enough, yet bold enough to let me be me and let me ask these questions, right? And to not only let me, but help me.
Yeah, help you.
To even know what questions to ask. And I often feel, part of it is because I'm like, I don't have nothing to give you. Like, I'm literally rebuilding my life after divorce with no money in the bank, with I'm still kind of figuring out, I'm overcoming feelings of being a burden. That was one of the biggest things because, again, even growing up, I was always in someone else's home. So here I am at my big age and I couldn't, I needed a cosigner or I needed I felt so damn needy. I'm like, girl, why are you even here? I have nothing to give you. She's like, I don't need nothing. You give me plenty by just being you. And the idea of my presence being enough for a person is wild to me.
Crazy, right? It's crazy. It's crazy.
And she's helped me get over feeling like I'm a burden, feeling like I'm in the way. I think I had this idea that I don't want to be like my father in that capacity of always using and living with someone or needing other people. And there really isn't anything wrong with needing other people.
No.
Or needing support or needing to feel safe and secure. And getting over that has been, one of the things that I'm most grateful for her is just helping me to be gracious with myself and giving me the space to do that.
Rebuilding. How can I don't know. I feel like you've done that.
Yeah. You're right.
That's what I'm.
Feels like it's constant.
But that's what we.
I was like, I guess so.
I have this idea that whatever it is that we're looking for, we already have it.
Yes.
And I have this feeling and I have this idea that whatever we're trying to be, we already are. And we get so used to telling ourselves a story about something that even when the circumstances change, that we find ourselves telling the same story.
Over and over. That's real.
And I think that you have, if we're constantly building, how can we rebuild?
Right. Yeah. It's a good point.
You have a home.
Yeah.
You got a lady who sounds really fucking dope.
She's super dope.
I have a saying in my life, my relationship with my wife, like, we love each other to freedom.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
good.
we do.
Yeah.
Nothing about my relationship should confine my wife from her becoming the woman that she is. My job is to help her manifest whatever her greatness is.
Yeah.
Even if that means us not being together.
Yeah.
That's the way I feel about what her job is for myself.
Yes.
So we're helping, we're feeding into each other, helping them build the wings. And then when they jump off the fucking ledge or whatever the analogy is, you fly out and then they come back to you. Why? Not because they have to, but because they want to.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what she's doing. Like it's not like a nest. One of the things that I asked you about with your marriage was, Why did you feel you couldn't do that? Because I feel like love shouldn't cost us anything like that. It shouldn't cost us. That's not love.
It's not. It's not.
But it sounds like all of the things that you said you're attempting to do, you're actually doing.
You're right.
Okay.
Now that you say that, and you know what? And she's encouraged me in that way as well. Like, Ning, you're good. And I'm like, but I still, can't pay, or can't do, or can't, be the one to pay for dinner, for this lavish meal or this thing we do.
It's just stuff.
It's just stuff. And she's like, and she said the same thing, like, it's just stuff. And she's actually told me from the beginning, what you said is like, whether this is forever or not, I'm okay with having this for now. And to hear someone say that, I didn't believe it. And I still kind of like, but what are they going to want from me in the long run?
Yeah.
But is she going to want a marriage? Is she going to want when I don't necessarily want those things now?
Maybe she will.
Maybe.
And maybe you will.
Maybe I will, right?
But time will tell.
Mm-hmm. And this is, one of the things that I love, a revelation that I received during Morning Light, right? I like to do Morning Light online. And one of the things that clicked is like, there's peace found in the present moment. Peace is found in the present. So if you're constantly thinking about what are her expectations, what does she want me to be later? No. Where are y'all right now?
Yeah.
What are y'all doing right now? Are you at peace right now in this relationship where you are? Yes, be that.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't imagine this relationship lasting longer than, and the way it happened is like the way Negroes do. You see someone out and you're like, she's having a drink over there and you know them from kind of over here in life and you see each other. And then you see somebody like, dang, you ain't getting no invite. Right? How we do?
Yeah.
She was like, well, come on. And one Negroni, two Negronis later, it's almost 3 years and here we are. We've built this relationship and right now we're good.
Yeah. And you got swag. I mean, I think her sneaker game is proper.
Child, her clock.
And
is one of the
the
flyest.
style, like you could just, it makes you wanna get to know, at least at the bare minimum, know her name.
Yeah. The swag, she got the style down. Again, she's a collector, an art collector. She's an artist. I showed you some of her work. Like she's just an all-around dope person.
Yeah.
The music, the God, like she can mix the hell out of cocktail, and she's just her spirit is she's just a peaceful spirit, just easy to be with, easy to be around. Ain't no expectations. Ain't no you gotta. I need. And I can only hope that I am this is as much a safe space for her as she is for me.